That's great. We've got a number of colleagues that have joined us, so welcome. I'm Gordon McFarlane, PPMA President, and I'm just going to do a brief introduction. This is the latest in a series of PPMA webinars. We run them all year round, but this is in particular, this is focused on some of our award winners and award entries, those that were highly commended. So we've got about half an hour, and I'll hand you over to a couple of colleagues. But this one is Hertfordshire County Council with TMP Worldwide, and this was about the recruitment of, well, you can see it there, but it was a kind of recruitment campaign. So the best creative concept recruitment campaign around adults, so both qualified social workers and social care workers with other qualifications too. So really relevant topical stuff for us all. What I suggest is I'll try and monitor the chat. So if you've got any questions or comments, if you put them in the chat, and we'll see if we've got time towards the end just to pick any of those up before we finish. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Richard Hall from Hertfordshire.
Thanks, Gordon. For those that don't know me, I'm Richard Hall. I'm the Head of Resourcing at Hertfordshire County Council, and it's great to be here to co-host today's webinar with Robert Peasnall from TMP Worldwide. TMP are Hertfordshire County Council's media partner, and we've had a long and successful relationship with TMP, who help the council with a lot of its branding and attraction activity. So just before we go into the slides, I'll hand over to Robert just to say hello and welcome into the call. So Rob, do you want to say a few words?
Indeed, yes. So hello everybody, really good to be here. As Richard said, we've had a long partnership with Hertfordshire and worked on a number of their sort of trickier and more challenging areas. And I think, you know, as you will all know, across the country, there's no area tougher at the moment than probably social care. So I'll talk in a second about kind of how we got to the approach we took, but very conscious that we needed something that delivered results, but also worked really hard because yeah, everyone's budgets are under pressure. We needed something that was kind of disruptive and kind of stood out from the competition, which is how we got to where we are now. Richard, back to you.
Thanks, Rob. For those that don't know Hertfordshire, we're located on the outskirts of London. So from a resourcing perspective, there's a significant proportion of the residents of the county that commute into London and out of county for employment. So from a resourcing perspective, just a bit of context about the environment we operate in, approximately 8,500 employees. Hertfordshire's got a really, really low unemployment level, so a lot lower than national figures. It's also a high cost area, so rent and housing is predominantly more expensive than nationally. So all that creates you know, a difficult resourcing landscape for us. So if we go on to the next slide, please, that'd be great. So like all organisations, post-pandemic, Hertfordshire County Council was experiencing a number of challenges relating to recruitment and retention activity. So this was particularly prevalent in the health and social care sector. So really interesting stat that I found the other week, which is there are 165,000 adult social care vacancies nationally in the UK at the moment. Now that's actually more than the vacancies that exist in the NHS. So we hear a lot about NHS vacancies, and actually the challenges that we face in adult social care are equally as tricky to deal with. So there's obviously a need for a campaign. We've got issues with recruitment and retention. And in light of this, we started to collaborate with some of our partners. So our main partners are Herts at Home. So that's a limited company which is wholly owned by Hertfordshire County Council, and Herts at Home deliver support to people in their houses. And also the Hertfordshire Care Providers Association, which acts as a collective voice for care providers across the Hertfordshire region. So as we were facing the same challenges, we clubbed together to start to work out what we could do to address some of the issues that we were all facing in the recruitment and retention space for adult care. So at that point, we engaged with TMP, to start to plan and develop a joint campaign. And during the campaign, we were asked one really, really important question by a senior stakeholder, and you can see that on the screen. So this was, why can't the people that we support choose to take the risks that everyone else would take in everyday life? So out of that, our creative concept was born, that risk is good. So the campaign, as you can see from the bottom, generated 345 hires, and we'll go on to some of the metrics and measures of success for the campaign a bit later on. But what I'd like to do now is hand over to Robert to talk you through some of the creative work that was done by his team that helped make the campaign such a great success.
Brilliant, thank you, Richard. So I think where we start with a lot of these projects, and you'll do yourselves, is to kind of really understand what's the challenge that we're trying to solve, and then what can we do, what can we tell people that will actually nudge them towards applying for Hertfordshire or any other employer that is relevant. So the first stage is that research element. So we talked to lots of people across the authority. I think we talked to some service users, we talked to managers and people kind of in post, and also some people outside working in care for other providers, but also looking at people who might be, that's highly unprofessional, people that might be working in allied areas where there's transferable skills. Because picking up that fact that Richard said earlier, we know how competitive it is to get people who are already working in care. So we really profiled a number of people, a number of groups that we were going to target through this campaign. So yes, we want to talk to people that might be working for a different care provider, might be looking at relocating regionally and seeing Hertfordshire as a kind of great destination place to be. But we also wanted to look at people kind of either starting their career or looking at a career change who may not have considered care before, but make sure that they kind of understood what it entailed and why it was right for them. And then the third audience that we were targeting were people in kind of allied areas, roles in kind of hospitality, other sectors where they may well have those kind of caring qualities, but they're not being brought to the fore in their current role. So that's the driver for a lot of that. And as Richard said, we did a lot of research and looked at also what were other people saying in the marketplace. And if you look at a lot of the traditional care kind of marketing, it's of, without kind of caricaturing it, an older service user smiling, having a cup of tea, and somebody sort of shaking their hand. And actually, if you cover the logos up, and this is a test that I'll put to all of you, look at your marketing for in this kind of area, and if you cover your logo up, does it feel distinctive? Or actually, could it be the neighbouring authority? And I think what we looked at was we were really looking at a mechanism to help stand out from the rest. So when we got that fact from the head of adults around kind of wanting service users to have a really balanced life, a life where they did take, considered risks, that felt really powerful, because that was a real enabler in terms of a kind of call to arms to people that said, actually, we want you to help these people live their fullest of lives that are possible, and really get massive sort of satisfaction from that. So that's where this essence of risk is good came from. And if we go on to the next slide, please. What you can see here is really looking at recognizing that for people, actually having that rounded life is really important to them. And you as a kind of a carer, whether you are a qualified through your life experience or you're already working in the profession, Hertfordshire's philosophy was different in it allowed you to build closer relationships and look at really gaining more meaningful results. So that was the kind of the core essence of it. And we wanted to bring that to life in a very different way. So bright, engaging kind of colours, these images that are made up of a mixture of photographs and kind of illustrations, but all showing activity, all showing movement, and a sense of kind of pace and kind of fun about them. So if we move on to the next slide, you'll see how that kind of comes to life. So really what you've got here are this is just a selection of the kind of messages, and the messages were targeted to each of those three groups that I mentioned earlier. So experience within the industry and others without that. And this is all about really highlighting and dramatising that challenge to give people a kind of the fullest life. So you've got an image there of somebody in a kind of wheelchair travelling kind of, what looks like rather quickly. And it's about kind of fearlessness brings us here. And again, a typeface, use of imagery, very unlike your typical local authority marketing. So it feels fresher, feels a bit more kind of challenging. And we felt this was important because we were trying to attract people who are working outside of councils as well as those within. Other images there being, adventure brought us here, rebellion brought us here, really making it a kind of call to arms where people felt that they were empowered to make good decisions for their service users. They were kind of encouraged to kind of take them to different places and to give them stretch them in terms of their ability. So a whole range of different imagery. You'll see the typography on this different for each of them, but all of them showing, I think, a sense of optimism, a sense of energy, and a sense of pace. And that's the the essence of that campaign look. We move on. And yeah, so this just frames this. So you've got you can see here a bit more clearly how we've blended photography with these illustrations, but really to make it feel contemporary, to put service users in there, so have service users at the heart of it in terms of their actual real photography, and to really have them champion what we want. So you've got, Herts Care Careers, risk is good, being a really powerful call to arms for the whole project. And I think we move forward again. Richard, back to you.
Okay, thanks. I just have to say, Robert, that I remember the buzz from the service users as they were involved in helping us create the relevant video and photography that we used in the campaign. It always makes me smile. Just a reminder that these were real service users that were doing real activities they do as part of the services that we deliver to them on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so I want to talk briefly now about the activity in the campaign that helped generate the new colleagues that joined the organisation. So a lot of stuff, if you're in the recruitment world, you'll notice here it is pretty standard in terms of paid and organic social media advertising on a variety of platforms. We had over 3 million impressions on Facebook, 8,500 on Twitter. We had 35,000 clicks through Google AdWords. So we generated some really, really good interactions. And I believe that is down to the appealing nature of the creative concept, as Robert mentioned, the fantastic imagery, the bright colours, and the concepts of how people can be rewarded by helping deliver services to our residents in Hertfordshire. So in addition to paid and organic social media, we ran careers events, both virtual and face-to-face. We did recruitment advertising on digital radio, and all the activity was directing candidates to a bespoke, dedicated internet page, which generated a really seamless experience for candidates. And we were very aware of that, bearing in mind we were targeting candidates for 3 different organisations. So that being Hertfordshire County Council, the Care Providers Association in Hertfordshire, and Herts at Home. A couple of bits that we did that were probably not as standard that helped with the success of the campaign were around the use of a chatbot. So if we could go on to the next slide, that'd be great. So Hertfordshire had never really invested in chatbot technology to assist with recruitment campaigns. And during this exercise, we were able to dip our toe in the water and try a chatbot facility. It was a really, really interesting learning experience for myself and my in-house recruitment team. And it was actually quite a successful exercise. The chatbot generated 900 interactions with candidates. And interestingly, 47% of those interactions happened outside of office hours. So it just illustrates to me that we've got nearly 450 candidates there that we may have missed had we not had that chatbot facility to engage with them outside of our typical working hours. Interestingly, I don't know why, but Wednesdays was the most popular day to use the chatbot. So I don't know what it is about Wednesday. Maybe it's a quiet TV day. Maybe it's hump day in the middle of the week, but a really, really useful tool that we used as part of the campaign. The other key factor we really invested heavily in as part of the campaign was additional resource to help manage candidates differently. So in a tough recruitment market, additional candidate management, responsiveness, TLC, and that personal touch is really, really important. And it's something that paid dividends in our campaign. It helped us make sure that individuals knew the roles that they were applying for, that helped us with engagement and reductions in dropout rates. So if we could go on to the next slide, please, that'd be great. Now, this is where technology may fail us. I don't know if we've got video or if we're just going to talk to it or not. So let's see if we can get the video going at this stage. If not, Robert will talk us through it.
Let me start giving some context just while the technology is spooling. So what we were keen to do, exactly as Richard said, is I think what we see often in local authorities will be that there's a lot of attention about the front end of the recruitment process. So our marketing, the imagery, those kind of ads on social media or on your website, you know, people do recognise the need to attract people initially and to kind of craft those. What often happens, and I think why campaigns fail, is that they then get dropped into a very standard recruitment process. So they might click on an interesting banner that looks quite engaging. It speaks to what motivates them and what they aspire to. And then they're put straight into your applicant tracking system where they've got to fill in a long form. And I think what really delivered here was recognizing that the people we're talking to have got choice. You know, the people with the skills we want, as Richard said, you know, there are hundreds of roles out there at the moment. Don't worry, PPMA Zoom, we'll talk over it. So we wanted to, as Richard said, deliver this seamless journey. So yes, there was some kind of really engaging and kind of colourful marketing, but then it took them to the kind of that dedicated page on the website, the careers website, that gave them more information. But we know that, you know, moving jobs isn't something that people do whimsically. It's a very considered decision, and people want to understand more. So there were a couple of films where it really brought to life what people do. So the first film here shows a number of service users doing really different things. So they were going to, sorry, I've lost the deck altogether. They were going out on kind of boards. They were going to adventure playgrounds. There we go. You can see some of the context here. We could see people having fun on bikes. So situations that could be deemed to be kind of risky, but very much kind of usual behaviour. And that slide, I think, is just amazing. When you saw people kind of trampolining or doing that, the kind of the positive energy they got from it was huge, but the connection they had with their staff was immense, and that sense of kind of freedom and liberation was really, really powerful. So what we did was to really film a set of these situations. It was lightly scripted, but not heavily scripted. We didn't want it to come across as kind of too clunky and clumsy. So it's very conversational, and you've got a balance of service users and care staff just talking about why they do, what they get from it, and the whole ethos and kind of philosophy that sits behind it. And I think the impressions on this were immense. And I think this was a key piece in terms of really helping people make the right sort of decision and to stay engaged, because it felt like delivering a different form of care. And I think this whole sense of risk is good was shorthand for, you know, you can do things differently here, you are more empowered. And I think it made the organisation come across very, very differently. So that's the first video. The second video, again, is a similar take, but it's really one service user and his kind of carer talking about what they've done in terms of kind of gardening, talking in terms of just, you know, some day-to-day life, going to the pub together, having a drink, playing snooker, the fact that the service users got a girlfriend, in fact she's in the first film. So it was really kind of human, not corporate. And it just told a series of kind of real stories. So that was an important part. And as Richard said, within the recruitment process, there was a real focus on making sure that people got content that suited them and their needs as they applied. So to making that application process as seamless as possible. I think I'll probably leave that for the films. Obviously, what we will do is share the deck afterwards, and you can listen to the films in all their glory. But Richard, over to you.
Thanks, Robert. And yeah, every time I see those films, they do make me smile. Yeah, they're great pieces of work. Okay, I'm conscious of time. We're approaching 12:30 for those that are joining us live. I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about the effectiveness of the recruitment campaign. For those that work in a resourcing function and have to demonstrate return on investment and the value to secure funding for specific pieces of work, this was something that was really, really important to me, and hopefully you can find something of use here in any work that you're doing around securing funding for campaigns. So some of the stats to mention are 63,000 visits to the campaign microsite and 1,770 applications. The recruitment world is full of stats, and it appears that there's a stat to support any kind of piece of information or decision that you're making around resourcing activity. But one stat that jumped out to me was there's a metric that states for every 100 applications, you should on average get 4 hires through a recruitment process. When we've analysed the campaign undertaken with TMP, we've had 19. So if the benchmark of a hire rate is 4%, the campaign delivered 19%. And I put that down to the additional candidate management and qualifying candidates, discussions with the candidates about the role to make sure they fully understood the position that we were applying for, and also the process they had to go through to make a big decision to change jobs. 345 appointments made. Key stat here is that over the same period in the previous year, that was 124 hires. So a significant improvement in terms of the number of colleagues joining the organisation. And then also the added bonus of helping with workforce stability, reducing our reliance on agency workers. The analysis on effectiveness of the campaign doesn't end there. We're tracking retention rates for those individuals that joined through our campaign to see if there are any improvements relating to the extra kind of TLC and the extra process that those individuals went through as we recruited and onboarded them to the organisation. Finally, before I finish, I am a great believer in the power of advocacy. As recruitment marketing budgets dwindle, one of my mantras is we have 8,500 employees at the council, which means I have 8,500 people that can speak to their colleagues, friends, neighbours to promote Hertfordshire County Council. So I cannot leave this webinar without saying that Hertfordshire is a great place to work, and that if you or any of your colleagues would be interested in looking at the career opportunities at Hertfordshire County Council, it's jobs.hertfordshire.gov.uk. So that's the end of my shameless plug. And I think we're now into questions if there are any.
That's really inspiring stuff, both of you. Thank you very much, and loving the shameless plug at the end. And actually, I haven't picked up any questions in the chat, but one question from me, just briefly, because I know we're running out of time, would be, I recognise the size of Hertfordshire. It's a large geographical area, so I was going to talk about local, but local is still quite large. But I just wondered, you've done a huge amount locally within Hertfordshire, but is there any need, in your views, for more of a national campaign in general terms that helps with kind of the profile, the image, the perception, just to support what we then do locally? So just really interested in your views on that.
I'm happy to take that, Robert, first. Absolutely anything that we can do that raises the profile and the social worth of the roles in adult social care and children's social care would be welcome. I believe there are a variety of initiatives. We run Good Care Week in Hertfordshire, which has a kind of similar slant to promote careers in social care, but anything that could be done to help address and promote the benefits of working in the sector, I'd personally welcome with open arms.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, I think that, and echo what you say, Richard, if you look at the health sector, and obviously they have a lot of similar roles in terms of healthcare support workers and things like that, I think NHS England does a really good job at that kind of national platform and really driving that. And obviously trusts do their own activity underneath that, but I know they've had some huge success. So whatever the LGA or anybody else can do to help drive national campaigns, I think it would deliver dividends.
That's really helpful, thank you, and I absolutely agree with that. And just before we're just getting a couple of questions for those who are still on the call. Just whether you offered, Emily's asked, sorry, there's a few questions, they're all coming in at the last minute. Just in terms of any changes you adopted for the recruitment process or application form, did you streamline, and also how you budgeted, how you got the funding for the campaign?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So in terms of streamlining the process, yeah, we spent a lot of time working with TMP to make sure the candidate journey was as quick and straightforward as possible, only collecting essential information. So making sure we didn't put people through a long application process, try to speak to people on the phone before they're asked to invest a lot of time in an application. So yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to differentiate the process to make it as smooth as possible. On the budget point of view, it's always useful to try and do comparisons on agency spend. So in an environment where there's a significant vacancy rate and an amount of spend going out the door on agency workers, that gives you an angle to create the business case for investing in a recruitment campaign. And I think there was one other question about engaging hiring managers.
Yeah.
So it's an education piece, really. So from a resourcing perspective, I see my role as resourcing and retention. Keep hold of the people we've got, as well as getting people through the door. And it was really educating managers to really, make it in their interest to support and get behind the recruitment campaign, putting it SLAs on managers to say, look, if you spend more than 2 days turning around a CV, you're going to lose the candidate. So it's an education piece for hiring managers in a changing recruitment market.
That's great.
I think that builds on Richard's earlier point about advocacy. So not only have it using the power of the entire organisation to go out and say really positive things, but particularly that hiring community, making sure they understand their role is vital in the recruitment process around speed of turnaround, but also the experience that they deliver to candidates. Recruitment is very much a two-way process, and they have a vital role in terms of selling the roles and promoting them, as well as selecting out. And that's jobs.hertfordshire.gov.uk, I think, wasn't it, Robert? Exactly.
I'm desperately searching for the mute button now. No, that's great. I think we'll wrap it up there because some people have had to go. Really great webinar. Thank you. Recruitment and retention is something that we'll be prioritising and talking about for some time to come, I think. So it's great food for thought in there. And for those of you still on the call, future webinars, details on the website. Thank you very much, both of you. And thanks everyone for joining. Cheers.
Thank you all. Thanks.